their stay, their food, their medical requirements, they were all taken care. So this was very important as a people connect. So there was a paradigm shift, I would say, in terms of how we start interacting with each other, and the humanitarian touch was available for us. And coming to the sales point of view, which you have told, surprising statistics for us that was given to our from our marketing team was that 9 out of the 10 sales in the residential sector happened during the COVID time. So this was possible probably, we again used technology, leveraged on that, and we implemented a lot of virtual tools. Probably people, when they started staying at home, had that time to think, yeah, maybe I may not have another opportunity. So let me invest. Maybe that's one way of thinking. Or the second one is that, work from home could be the new norm. So I definitely need a space of my own. So that's how, there were the sales and marketing which did happen. Coming to the other aspect that you discussed about, this one was accepting COVID as a new norm. So we have to move on with that. So I think we learned about the lean construction principles, and then of course how to manage the cash flows. Everybody did that. So what was important, when Dr. Anshu was speaking about the choices to make, right? So when a project has to be delivered, we have to get a green building certification. We have so many point options, right? So we looked at, okay, what is the cost? And then putting up a solar plant on the rooftop and probably getting into that offsite renewable energy was a better option than going in immediately for a second skill, which is more of an aesthetic element for us. So these were certain decisions which definitely helped us. So to sum it up, I would say, remembering Brooke, so I would say that pandemic or war may come, pandemic and war may go, but human resilience will continue to stay, and it will go on forever.
Absolutely. Well said. In fact, yeah, I think the key takeaways I would say is hearing you. We as construction industry fall on the other end of the spectrum where work from home is practically not possible. You need to be at the place where action happens. And you also mentioned about the well-being, probably something like bio bubbles, what we saw in sports. That's something which you just mentioned, and with a complete paradigm shift as far as the design concepts and the design approaches are concerned. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your insights. From Mrs. Shobha, as from the end user point of view, I would like to now shift to from the contractor point of view. I will request Ms. Preeti Ramamurthy. We all, in fact, I relate quite closely with the contracting segment. We have some horrid time for the first quarter, and the second quarter has not been any better as far as the variations in the commodity prices, the way it has impacted the contracts, and of course, as ma'am mentioned, the demand of end users, again they are pressured by their commitments, has not reduced, but we have to deliver on that. The price contracts are very, very differently drawn. So how, as a contracting company, have you all faced that? It is known that it's been who better than you, we are the second generation in the contracting industry, that you have been resilient through all these things. So how have you approached as an organization and on a contract basis primarily?
Thank you for the question. In all honesty, some of our major clients were pharmaceutical companies. I think than any other segment around us, the pharmaceutical companies were at their topmost game. They were literally they were put in a situation where they had to be at the topmost game. And for them to deliver what they are expected out of. Fortunately, like you said, contractors like us, you had to depend on us. So we did manage, we had our team, we did get special permissions and permits and other things. In the first quarter, it was like as though hell broke loose. But then we had to find our common ground, and yes, we did deliver. When it comes to the project's point of view, we had a couple of projects going on. There were clients who understood, you know, when it comes to individual clients. They had that understanding of what was going on. So we did not have that emphasis or that pressure from their end. At the end of the day, it was, unfortunately, it was a game where all of us were trying to survive, right? And people did realize what was going on around us. But whereas when it comes to certain builders and other clients where like delivery was key, fortunately, we were able to manage it. But yes, there was a lot of shortage when it came to material movement. Because as you know, the transportation took a big hit. There was extensive delay, and over the period of time, there was shortage of so many raw materials because import export was impacted. But yes, I think than anything, the communication and the relationship that you share with your client. As a contractor, yes, it's not an easy game, but when during a crisis point of time as such, we had to have that fair share of talk with them, speaking with them, and we delivered certain projects that were of utmost urgency. But whereas the others, it was understood and we worked in a little bit of time. So that helped us. Now, coming down to the cost part of it. During, to be honest, it's almost a haze for me to kind of put a word around as to how we manage the cost implications. But after COVID, our simple funda is itne mein itna hi millega. Everyone's trying to make up for those 2 years of loss, the 2 years of time that has been lost. So everything, when we have to put a number to it, everything is money. So be very honest, when it comes to certain clients, they are very, very stringent about quality. So they understand the cost. It's not something that's hidden in the market today. I think the COVID time made us all sit back and look at things that are right in front of us. Then probably a couple of years back, we wouldn't have even gone through. Like for a person who read these segments of the newspaper or gone through the segments of news. But during COVID, we were pushed down to look into what the ground reality around us was. And still, we know all of us face, whenever we have clients like all compare, like do it. Unfortunately, as contractors, we need to sustain, we need to have the traction going on. But yes, I think the money spent and the quality delivered are two things that go hand in hand. As contractors, we can only educate the client over the differences, but at the end of the day, it is their money that they're investing and it's their call. Thank you.
The key point. In fact, it was quite, as you spoke about the landmines of cost, that's been the gray areas for contracting, as such, especially in Q1, Q2, most of us literally it blew on our face, and then we had to somehow bleed also and at the same time survive also. That was a very difficult phase. But you mentioned the relationship, which is, I think, very less heard now between the end user and the contractor. It's always been cost. There's been a hysteria around this, as Dr. Anshul in her presentation mentioned, that finally it boils down to cost. And but you did mention a very refreshing thought that the relationship also plays a very important role in the survival of in such difficult times. And I'm sure with the hand holding from the end user, it will be a win-win combination going further. And I hope that this relates into all the.
If I may add, I am sitting here as a second generation entrepreneur because of the relationship the founders and my managing director were able to maintain these years. So yeah, that is one of the critical points that I've literally thrown out.
Yes, yes, I wouldn't have agreed more because we do remember Mr. Ramamurthy even till today for bringing about a very corporate kind of a culture, an approach to contracting industry, HVAC industry. He would have been the forerunner of that. Thank you, and over to you, Nisha.
Thank you. I'd now like to move this discussion slightly towards the digitization aspect that happened because of the pandemic. As an industry, we were at I could say, the back foot of accepting digitization and technology. And now with the increased spend with all the verticals, whether it's data centers, residential, like ma'am mentioned, the demand has gone up. So naturally, the demand for alternative technologies have also come up. So I'd like to pose my next question to Sangeeta ma'am. So with the advent of modular technologies, prefabricated buildings, how do you see the role of the MEP services getting integrated? How do you think all the players have to adapt to these technologies in the days to come?
So when you talk about integration, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that our body also works as an integrated machine, if I have to call it. Imagine if we were having a small pain in our toe, do you think we can function normally? Our focus will not be, either at home or children or work, but it will continuously keep going to the, pain point. So the same thing in any construction, whether it is modular or whether it is any building, the key parameter is integration. I also want to tell you that when I joined, the workforce 35 years ago, and when we used to do a project, at that point in time, there used to be an architect on the project, and there was, I come from HVAC industry, so it used to be a cooling, and there used to be these were people that used to be part of the project. Today, technology has advanced so much that at that point in time, fire was never given a thought. Buildings were not that tall. If we were doing a 10,000 square feet project, it was considered a big project. So now today, a commercial space of 1 lakh is, just an ordinary, project. 1 lakh square feet, when I say, is just one floor, multiplied by, a high-rise building would be 20, 30, even 40 floors. So the scale of the projects have become very, very big. And if all the services are not integrated, it would just not work. And when I mention services, you all know that today is not just HVAC and iron electrical, but there is fire, and there is a lot of controls and automation that has, come up into the building space, and then there is sustainability. You also have a project management company that is there in any project. So there has to be a synergy between all the team members, and if there is no synergy, the things will not work. Having said that, there is one big, lacuna in the whole thing. See, when we talk about the field of medicine, if you were to pick up the phone and call up, say, a doctor who's, a specialist in the field of bone, the first question the assistant of the doctor would ask you is, which bone are you talking about? A doctor specializing in the shoulder will not, take a call and see a patient who's having a pain in the knee. So in medicine, we are talking about super specialization, but in engineering, and when it comes to building, we are a little, you're not talking of specialization, but we're talking of integration and somebody who's a generalist, who knows a little of everything. And that I find is creating a little bit of lacuna in the industry. So like how Mukta ma'am said, that there are a lot of, young people who are not joining engineering. because people don't realize that there is scope in this industry and we are short of people. There are a lot of, engineers who are not taking up mechanical, just want to do computers. And after doing engineering, they want to do an MBA or they want to do, something else. So we are starving for good engineers. And we also have to bridge this gap between, an integrator, and we also need to have, people who are specialists in a field. We need to have a specialized electrical engineer who understands the nitty-gritties. We need a specialist HVAC person. We need a specialist, person who understands fire completely. So this is the gap which we have to bridge. And, people who are sitting in this room and who are into education, I would urge you to tell the student that this is an industry that is looking for good people and that there is a lot of scope.
Thank you, ma'am. Like you mentioned, the integration and coming together of the domains is key. But on a lighter note, I'd also like to add that, it's not just the young engineers who don't want to join. I mean, I'm often told, as a woman, second generation women, you joined this industry. Today, a lot of our friends ask us to speak to their sons or daughters, urging us to talk to them that this industry has a lot to offer. So, like you mentioned, the integration has to come together for, especially with the scale of the projects going up. My next question, more along these lines, is to Ms. Leena. Again, with the advent of digitization, we saw a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening, a lot of MOUs being signed with the governments, which it suddenly became easy to sign an MOU with, say, the Singapore government to bring smart cities to our country, and especially with the government's focus on climate change initiatives. Ma'am, how do you think? I mean, it's a lot easier to say that we've adapted technology, but it's a lot more harder to implement those and see concrete results at the end of the day. So I'd like to hear from you your views on these mergers and acquisitions that happened over the last 2 years or with the advent of technology from the countries.
So you're really talking, well, firstly, thank you, Ishri, thank you, Deepa, for calling me here. It's always nice to connect with people from other industries because I don't think we can work in silos anymore. And just being an architect is no use unless I can connect with the rest of the team. So you're talking really at the micro level or the macro level, where you're talking of smart cities and technology. Well, firstly, there's a lot we've tried to understand of what really is the meaning of a smart city. And basically, if you cut it down to what it's supposed to mean, a smart city is supposed to make the quality of life better for its citizens. And that is being done through technology. There's a lot of talk about it, but it's really not being implemented so well. Because it's simply not easy to bring technology in without changing the mindset of people. I mean, if you even look at what we call smart streets today, what we call Tendershwar, the whole idea is good. The design is good. But when you begin to implement it, if it's not correctly understood by the people who implement it, then the whole purpose of these smart innovations and smart designs is really a failure. And I believe now that what's even more important is that the government has started this whole initiative called the Nudge Initiative. And there's a lot of research being done on how do you change the mindset of the citizen, how do you change the mindset of the worker to really change and begin to implement what is being designed. It's not very easy to just make a rule and then say that's how it's got to be. So if you look at the Swachh Bharat mission of the Prime Minister, so he's built hundreds of toilets all around villages, but the whole exercise has not been successful. And now there is a think tank, not one think tank, but several who have been given the assignment to see why is it not successful? What is it? They build toilets everywhere, but it's not being used. People are not using it. They use it as storerooms. So what's the whole reason of failure? And what's come about really is that you cannot make a rule and have everybody just change and use it. you've got to nudge the citizen to change. So while we talk of smart cities, while we talk of smart technology, and while it certainly is understood by a small minority of us, the majority of the citizens don't really take to it because it's not so easy to change. It takes a little bit of time, it takes a little bit of understanding. And I believe that's the whole problem with technology and how we're changing it. We believe that we say smart, we have smart city mission, we have smart city offices, and the whole country is going to change. That really doesn't happen. But I believe the change is coming. It's coming slowly. As citizens, we ideas with the staff, with people, with consultants. It's never a singular profession. There are hundreds of us involved in it. And we're bouncing ideas off to come to a particular design that could be a successful one. And eventually that's what we want. We want successful designs. And it's that is a little difficult to do with technology, at least so far. It's not so easy to do. It's not so easy to, even have a Zoom talk, but there's nothing like meeting physically. There's nothing like a physical conference over a Zoom conference. I think we're all just tired of that Zoom conference. So it's nicer to be connected and to be together. So I believe it's not so easy to just say technology and how is it changing. It certainly is changing, but that's not the be all and end all. And technology is always a double-edged sword. You take any technology, you take nuclear technology where it came in. Nuclear technology was really meant and perhaps designed for peaceful purposes. But then we started building nuclear bombs. And then sometimes the whole purpose of the technology gets defeated because it's used in negative ways. So when we talk so easily of technology, we talk so easily of smart systems, but the whole thing depends on how we understand it and how we implement it, and that's what I believe is really missing. So it's almost like saying you go home and your child goes back from school and says, I'm hungry. You send a message saying, open the fridge and here you have this, put it in the microwave, heat it up. So, well, that's pretty smart because you don't have to be there. You can give instructions through technology on what everybody in the house has to do. But I believe that's not really the intention of technology. That's really where you begin to use it in a wrong way. So while we are moving towards it, and yes, technology always says time is money, I personally don't like that saying at all because time doesn't always have to equate to money. Then our relationships become completely commercial. It becomes I mean, these days you meet people and someone says, you meet a real. I mean, it's happened to us where we met as friends, and there was someone who was looking for he had a piece of land and he was looking for a builder to build. And another person said, why don't you contact so and so that would perhaps work for you and it would help. And he did contact the person and it did turn out to be a deal. Then he calls up and says, now you have to pay me a commission. So where do you end even in social conversations when you start talking of time is money? So what's really more critical than talking of technology is how we understand it and how we use it. It's certainly common, but that's more critical, in my opinion, in any field, including in the profession.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your view. So my next follow-up question is to Ms. Lakshmi. To a large extent, we know that the manufacturers were sort of, we could say, better prepared during the pandemic. They probably had ERP systems, CRM systems in place. But how do you manage a workforce of the size that you do, where you have hundreds of people on the shop floor and factories? How do you go about handling them and upskilling these workforces over the past few years?
So thanks for the question and thanks to the ISHRAE team and Deepa as well, and the entire coordination done by the team in terms of connecting the panelists and then organizing it well organized and eminent speakers I really enjoyed from the morning the sessions and the question is, I could say the GDP growth and as well as for the industries, we have done the highest ever growth in the last 2021 because of the service sectors that we have grown due to the flexibility and agility what we had in the industries and the manufacturers. Because pandemic has given a chance. So any changes when it comes, people don't resist the change and then take that as an opportunity. So we did exactly the same thing in the manufacturing sector in terms of, yes, we had one of the biggest challenges is as everybody said, like human resource, the biggest capital, when it comes, how do we, really, attract and the people to come forward for the industries, but one of the biggest challenge. So the strategy what we have applied is like, making sure that like, okay, we provide the safe work environment in terms of, assuring that like, okay, the way in how they have voted, they should go back home safely. So the digitization and the technologies really help in terms of, quickly having the thermal screening and then like, okay, the protocols and the process and system in place to make sure that how do we quarantine people and then how do we, the contact tracing, all those things will help to gain the momentum as well as gain the confidence of the employees that yes, the workplace is a safe place than sitting at home at the same time, the earn while, learn. So we had a kind of, the resource which is a mix in nature, which is permanent workforce as well as the flexi. So in fact, we use this pandemic to use our permanent or the highly skilled and experienced people to, take them as a trainers or the, gurus to teach the flexible resource. So that has helped. It's kind of like, okay, they're not only, working, it has given a, good connect to make sure that the flexi resource who have been just fresh school outgoers or the college turnouts. So for them, it is a good platform to connect and then see how the Gurukul model kind of thing, like okay, skilling up, and then we have a robust system in place to evaluate, are they qualifying and what kind of infrastructures in the training module and how do we, it's a kind of mixed blend, I could say. One is on the theoretical session and then the hands-on experience. We have a skill center which will evaluate based on the practical assessment to make sure that it is not only the the human workforce never get bored in terms of making sure that they're empowered and they engage. And the other thing, like okay, one I liked the Jayanti as presenting about the Nadi in terms of technology. So I would like to mention here one of the technology. How do we really embed and encode the technology as your innovation, which will set your pace in terms of the market leader. So in my company, so what we did is like, okay, she talked and she has given the video about all the processes, the welding process and the machining or the painting. So how do we really, kind of having a balance between the manpower and then the automation, which will definitely, make you as a market leader. So the technology is something like, okay, which we are really explore the technology to make sure that like, okay, the man dependency or wherever there is kind of, it's a, like you have a risk in terms of safety or in terms of quality. So we have, deployed the right technology to make sure that like, okay, the product quality assurance has been taken care by artificial intelligence and then the product validation and the process validation is done by the, the virtual platforms, which has helped to make sure that my process has been an error proofing. So always Japanese technology talks about, the mistake proofing. The more, you give the mistake proofing, it will set the pace for the clean and, the safe environment for the workers to contribute more. And I could, the theme they given is a connect and then cultivate and flourish. If you connect digitally and then cultivate your development, and definitely flourish your sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. I particularly personally like the Gurukul model that you mentioned about, where the senior members nurture and educate the younger workforce. I think that is particularly key when we work in such segregated workplaces. Okay, we're close to the end of the session, but if we could take a couple of questions from the audience, if there are any questions from the audience.
First of all, I'm very inspired to see all women leaders on the stage. And my question to you is like, I'm working in IT industry wherein whenever I come across a married woman, me being a single, you don't understand. We are telling give the equal opportunity, you consider them after marriage, after baby, give them an opportunity to work together with us. When we are giving an opportunity, when I say little more to them, you don't understand, ma'am, you are single. What is it is coming from a woman. For that kind of woman, how can we empower or enable them? So what is your, because I see all of you have a family, babies, and you have accomplished certain, you have accomplished that roles, positions in your career as well as in your personal life. So how do you encourage that kind of women who, after having an opportunity, who are like work talking like, no, you should give, like you should consider, I'm a woman, I have a baby. So let's, this is something I hope you understand, because I, me being a single, like anything I try to say, it's like you don't understand. You don't have a baby, you are not a married, you don't have a family, so you don't understand. This is what I usually encounter in my day-to-day work life, where I try to encourage and empower these women. No, I'm asking this because you have accomplished it. I inspired having your families, babies, everything you have accomplished. That's why I'm asking these questions.
Yeah, I think the small. I
Nothing against women.
I would like to rearrange that question. Yes, we are privileged to have a lot of achievers on the dais here. And then, yes, you have been the beneficiaries of your own hard work, observation, skill, as well as the knowledge transfer which happened from your predecessors to yours. So I think this question is more towards what kind of methods are available for young engineers or the people who want to learn. What kind of knowledge transfer is possible? Are there any organizations which are actually working on that? And if they are working, what kind of methods?
Sir, the question is not that.
Yeah, I'll answer.
Okay,
I'll answer your question.
I think that men don't understand.
On a lighter note, they say that behind every successful man is a woman. Agreed? And I believe that many of you may disagree. One of the key things is behind every successful married woman is a mother-in-law. So anyway, on a lighter note, it's not about mother-in-law, but it's about a support system. So when we have to go out of our home and give importance to our profession as well, we have to have a symbiotic system, a support system. It could be the parents or it could be friends, like in the building which I live. It's now all about nuclear families, but there are a group of women, whose children are of a similar age. So they formulated a group and they support each other. So if there is somebody who says, I need to travel out of town, so the other woman steps in, okay, don't worry, your child will be taken care of. Or if there is a sick child, or if the mom is not around and something has happened with the child, somebody from the group will, automatically take charge and look after the child and stuff like that. Then in today's time, we also have a lot of house help. So it's about how you manage, how, again, it's about relationship. You have to have a good relationship with your friends, with your family, so that they can become your support system. So that's how you manage things. And I do not think when it comes to a profession, you can discriminate, saying that I have a child at home. Everybody has problems. Men also have problems. So when we are at work, we have to have a professional attitude and our personal problems have to be kept aside. That's how I would like to answer your question. Does that satisfy you?
I would also, like to talk about how I kind of implement it because I also need a lot of young women with young children. And so as a team, what we do, suppose, so as ma'am said that you have to give your professional and personal life different, right? But the professional, like both are equally important. So the work cannot suffer because your client, you have to answer to your client, right? And there are so many responsibilities. So within the team, we have a culture that there's a work and it needs to be done, right? And we also have an internal professional support system. Like you have a personal support system. So in the office also you have a professional support system in which one person can step in others for shoes. So if there is a requirement, that person has to take leave, be man or woman. They can, as long as the work doesn't start, but it is taken care of. That is also built within the culture. And I think I have been fairly successful in this, that there is no kind of, and so for that, some amount of redundancy also needs to be built within the workforce and within the work. You cannot have, one person for one job, and if that person is falling ill, that works out. So each office will follow different cultures, but this is something which I have built within.
I got it. About the support system, and it's something what can empower you. Let's say self-motive. What is that made you keep going? So it's kind of secret of your success for a women who are like dealing with this balancing thing.
What I would say, there's no one rule that fits all. And for everybody, what is very important is that the job that you take, the responsibility that you take, and your capacity to deliver have to match. So if you have someone who says, I can't come because my child is not well, so and so and so and so, then that person is not correct for that job. The person's got to move to another job where you can say all this, or where the job is not so taxing. So you can't take up a taxing job and then you excuse it. I believe that's not acceptable at all. Because in work there are no excuses. You can be whatever you are, whatever problems you have at work, it's not there. You can't go to your client and say, I'm sorry, I haven't finished these drawings because so and so's child was sick. He's not concerned about who's sick and who's not sick. So it has to be a match. And someone who keeps scribbling and giving reasons for non-delivery of work, that job is not fit for that person. It's a mismatch. And you're going to tell the person to move somewhere else where it suits that one's timings or lifestyle or whatever it may be. That's what I believe in the professional world. So if someone keeps telling you that, tell it to move on. That job is not meant for you.
Thank you. Just to add another I being a mechanical engineer, I was brought up, with the apprentices and resistance from accepting me as an engineer. When I did first, my job role was shop floor supervisor. So first you should have the mental stability and even emotional intelligence, like, okay, yes, it's okay. Let them say whatever they want to do, but you be clear and then confident on what is that you're visionary, what is that you wanted to, aspire and achieve. So be focused on your goal and ignore about what the others. If there is something in some input like this, at least you have to take that as okay, this is something challenge in front of me. How do I work on some action plan to make sure that I deliver the best result? And then that get recognized by the big one. That's how your mindset should be. Clear mindset. You spoke about motivation. Come to the lectures like this. Definitely, if we get motivated, and it just subsides after some time. We are all human beings after all. So the best thing is self-motivation. I think I believe in that. Nobody can motivate you. There are many factors which will help them. So that's one thing about self-motivation, which is very, very important. The second thing is you were talking about is being a single woman or married and things like that. At this point in time, you say you are at an advantage. You don't need to give excuses when you understand. But of course, there's a lot of
just to encourage, like, whatever
your side, which I can use for that.
I think on the corporate sector also, like what Sangeeta was also telling is the support system is very important. So I understand you move from internship to internship. So irrespective of the age, ladies still get the chance to come back and let us prove that we can do a lot of things.
Share a very story when I started my career, what I am. So I used to, as I said, I was one of the very first persons to get into the green building sector. So we used to do a lot of energy audits and with the Taj hotels and all. So and it was a all boys team and I was the only woman. And we used to do a lot of, and they sometimes used to, "Oh, you can't go, you can't walk into the plant rooms or the HU spaces." So we had this palace hotels, like the Jai Mahal Palace and all, which were converted hotels. So essentially, suppose the air handling units, etc., or the piping, they used to be very narrow and small spaces. So these boys, big boys, they will not be able to enter, and I was small. So they used to make me enter there and take the measurements. So after that, everybody, and I actually learned, and not being an architect, I understand mechanical, the working functioning of HVAC very well because I went there and I found my utility walking into those spaces and making myself useful just on a lighter note.
So I think before we get, just have a quick question now. Just one word that comes to Preeti you when I say street. HVAC and Lina ma'am, architecture.
When you say street, is it?
Architecture.
When I say architecture, what would be the first word that comes to your mind?
Oh, when you say architecture, I would say the influence on the human in
Shobha ma'am, industry. Empathy. Wow, that's a lovely answer. Lakshmi ma'am, transformation.
innovation.
Sorry?
Innovation.
Innovation. Fantastic. Mini ma'am, what does Shakti mean? Energy. Energy. Fantastic. But before we go, I'd actually like to ask Vinod sir a question. Normally, we see a powerful woman moderate a panel of powerful men. How is your experience in moderating this panel of powerful women?
Example, like, completely. So it's a difficult job. The women could take it on. I mean, we get this done very easily, but it's very difficult for men here. And that's the reason we spend more time out of the house.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for
That's called an excuse.
Yeah.
Not bad anyway. To be very frank, it's a privilege to listen to a completely different perspective, which each of the speakers have brought to the regular problems we see from both ends.
I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of Ishti to thank all the panelists who with all the participants. We've had close to 200 views, people logging in from all across India. Thank you so much. It was one of our first such initiatives on a national scale, and I think it's safe to say that it's been a success with all your support. As I mentioned to Ms. Deepa and Sandeep, who pulled this through with the support of the Bangalore chapter, and of course, not to forget our sponsors, without whom this would not have been possible. Thank you so much. Please continue to support us, and we will be back very soon. And have a great day.
Thank you so much.